Let's get ready to rumble!
So we're a week away from the boxing match that nobody asked for, right? And the UFC event that everybody will be watching. Canelo's fighting Berlanga. Another snooze fest. They're trying to sell a pay-per-view for $90 and $500 minimum in person. It's just robbery at this point.
It's a robbery.
$90 to watch Canelo fight Berlanga is a lot of money. And then October the 12th for Beterbiev and Bivol, or if they're willing to pay for AJ and stuff, nearly $300. They're paying to watch boxing in the span of a couple of days. It's not a matter of being broke. It's about knowing the value of your money. It's being an adult and knowing the value of your money. That's how a lot of us were born and raised, to know the value of your money. I think Oscar is going over the top with Canelo. Like, you can go UFC. You don't have to support Canelo's event. Now, I don't have to pay $90 to watch Canelo. And I'm still undecided whether I purchase it or not. But Oscar's going a bit over the top. Let people decide what they want to do, if they want to support his event or not. He's out of control right now. Him and Ryan Garcia just barking at people on the internet. They're out of control. But, you know, it's going to be interesting. Like, Canelo and his pay-per-view is representing the old model of overpriced pay-per-view in America, because Edgar Berlanga was not the chosen opponent they wanted to see Canelo fight. And he's charging $90, $89.99. And now we're seeing the old model being challenged by the Riyadh season model. Turki is saying here, Bivol versus Beterbiev is set to be priced at £15 in the UK, which is $4.99 cheaper than the $19.99 we've been accustomed to. It looked like it was going up to £25.99 for our pay-per-views. So that's a considerable reduction. Worldwide, Bivol and Beterbiev will be priced at $15. He believes that people go around it illegally because the price is high. In the future, this will not build boxing. He says, if I give the fans good fights at a good price, then it will increase the fan base. Joshua versus Dubois will be available for $19.95 in the UK, with prices elsewhere yet to be officially confirmed. There are claims that 20 million people illegally streamed Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, and their historic undisputed heavyweight clash in May, costing TV rights holders around £95 million in lost revenue. 18% of those watching illegally were from the UK, where the price was set at £25, while 25% came from North America. And it says here, United States pay-per-views have been ludicrously high for some time. Turki then goes on to say, I would prefer to have 1 million fans subscribe and buy the pay-per-view for £20 less than the 500,000 people subscribe for £40. So his strategy is to get attention, get eyes on the events. That's his strategy right now. We'll see how it pans out. I want to be positive because it's good news, especially for those, not just in America, but around the globe. If they're interested in that card, £19.95 is quite a competitive pricing for an evening's entertainment. Now, like I say, the time zone for some of these cards don't necessarily fit in with the schedules of some, depending where they're located. But that's a lottery, literally a lottery. You know, I think people are exaggerating Canelo's star power. He's up against one undisputed fight that will be available for £15 in the UK, $15 worldwide. Beterbiev versus Bivol. And they can also get a heavyweight title fight, Joshua versus Dubois. They can get both for $34. With the pricing that Turki's talking about there, they could afford another 3 of them at that pricing there. And still have a little change for some snacks to accompany the fight. While Canelo, you can't even think about refreshments and food until you spend the $90. And like, that's it. That's all the boxing you're going to get is on what's on that card. Kaylee Plant versus Macumbi. That undercard is not as competitive as Joshua and Dubois, and it's not as competitive as Bivol and Beterbiev. It just isn't. Whether you are not familiar with the British fighters or the European fighters on them two cards, it's just not as competitive. It just ain't. And if you know anything about boxing, I shouldn't have to explain myself, and I wouldn't dignify an explanation of why it's not as competitive. the more these new prices are introduced into America, I don't know what the PBC does. I don't think they've broadcast a non-pay-per-view event since they've been on Amazon. I don't think they have. I don't see how they compete. Bob Arum's okay, he's partnered up with Turki, and he doesn't do a lot of pay-per-views, to be honest, does he? So it could be ominous signs for the PBC. Canelo's pay-per-view numbers at $90, competing with Anthony Joshua, Bivol and Beterbiev's numbers at considerably less money, will be an indicator how Tank does against Rayo. And then we'll see what the future holds for the PBC. We'll see. At the same time, though, the piracy is a bad issue everywhere, even in the UK, but it's a really bad issue in America. And I have a feeling that even if you reduce the pricing, what happens to people is when they get used to streaming illegally, it just becomes a point of principle where they just don't want to pay. Even if you charge them next to nothing, $5, they'd find issue with paying it. I think one solution to piracy and illegal streams is to go back to closed circuit television, where they hold the events in a cinema. Take it off television. It's something the broadcasters should look at.
Wardley fought Fraser Clark on the 31st of March. Adam Azim and Harlem Eubank entered the ring to do a face-off. It's fair to say if the fight wasn't signed by that time, why aren't we seeing Harlem Eubank as Adam Azim's opponent?
I think you have to ask Harlem. We signed for the fight. It was June 15th. That was the date. Adam got injured. But Harlem communicated, changed management, and they wanted to go in a different direction at that point. And obviously I'll respect that, but I think huge credit has to go to Adam. We had the artwork done. We were ready to go with that fight.
I was obviously, had big offers and opportunities on the table. And, we chose the Azim fight. I'm signed for June 15th. He pulled out of an ankle injury. A date wasn't rescheduled. We had dates thrown to us that didn't materialise. We're not going to sit around waiting for anyone.
So they came in the ring in March. The fight was scheduled for June. Adam Azim injured his ankle. Eubank said there was no date rescheduled. Ben Shalom said it was rearranged for August the 31st on the undercard of Wardley versus Clark, but that fight went over to Saudi Arabia, obviously, for October the 12th. Ben Shalom claims they made an October the 5th date in Brighton, but Eubank got new management. Now, Eubank said he's not waiting around and, but all these proposed dates and Adam Azim's ankle injury, I never heard anything about it. August, on the undercard of Wardley or Clark, I never read anything about any dates that were proposed. Brighton. The fight disappeared, but they're saying there was these dates and Adam was injured. They kept it very hush-hush, and now they're saying, oh, there's no fight. Eubank doesn't seem frustrated that he's waited months and now the fight's not happening. Ben Shalom doesn't seem frustrated. That's because the fight was never happening. They probably paid Eubank and his uncle Chris to show up at Wardley Clark 1 and pretend they were going to make a fight. Nobody was really thrilled to bits about the announcement, but they felt they had to do something because obviously Adam's been ducking Dalton Smith, vacated his European title rather than fight Dalton Smith, and didn't want to challenge for Dalton Smith's British title. So they felt they had to do some PR, damage control, and now Eubank just said there he had big fight offers. Who from? Who were these big fight offers? Who from? And I already showed the receipt, late 2023, when his uncle said he's going to be fighting at 147 next year. How much do you weigh? I weigh 156. Yes. Next fight after this one's going to be at 147. We're going to target Conor Benn. Then months later, they jump in the ring talking about they're going to fight Adam Azim at 140. Anyone can see it was staged. Now, Ben Shalom and Harlem Eubank are not the most aggressive or assertive characters in boxing. Both of them are saying that the other walked away. They're not challenging each other and saying, no, it didn't go like that, which is what boxers and promoters normally do. Yeah? They normally defend their position if they feel the potential opponent avoided the fight. But neither of them are doing that. That's unusual in boxing. It's very unusual. Let's move on. There's talk of Adam Azim fighting OHARA Davis. Now, OHARA Davis is 32. Harlem Eubank is 30. Adam Azim is 22. Difference is, though, Harlem is more active. He's fresher. He's not coming off a one-round knockout loss. Since 2019, OHARA has been fighting once a year. Once in 2021, once in 2022, once in 2023, and he got knocked out this year by Barroso, who just got cooked the other day in Japan. I'm not complaining about the fight. But I'm not going to be taken for an idiot either. OHARA Davies hits hard, probably hits harder than Harlem Eubank. And perhaps he could catch AZIM. We don't know what kind of shot AZIM takes. Perhaps he could catch him and cause an upset. Perhaps. I would theorize, though, that Harlem Eubank's counter-punching, combination punching, quicker feet than OHARA Davies. He's never had fast feet, OHARA Davies, even when he was nearer to whatever his prime was, whenever his prime was. OHARA is very low volume, doesn't have fast feet. Harlem's attributes would give Adam more of a test, aside from OHARA's puncher's chance, let's say. But hey, that fight was never happening. I'm not mad at the fight, but I'm more interested to see what Ben Shalom does with it. Ben Shalom and Sky, I think they've had an input because OHARA Davies fought on Sky a lot when he was with Matchroom. They're figuring OHARA, certainly when he was younger, not short of a word or two, could help build this into an event that would be a building block for Adam Azim to become a star. Now, can Ben pull it off? I want to see if he can pull it off. Let's see what he's made of as a promoter. But, you know, look, OHARA is very inactive. Yeah, let's keep it real. We're talking boxing. The speed gap between him and Adam is going to be very pronounced. And, like, aside from the puncher's chance, he's going to get peppered in there. He's going to get peppered. Now, whether Adam Azim has the ability to finish it spectacularly, we'll see. But any talk from Ben Shalom that, this could be a harder fight than the Harlem Eubank fight, which is what he was suggesting. OHARA Davies' tactics against Barroso were an absolute disaster. He said he wanted to force Barroso into exchanges and make the older man work. He was just too reckless way too early with such an experienced opponent. Walked onto a left hook very early that was high up in the head. It didn't do him no damage, but he didn't attempt to feel out Barroso at all. He just kept pursuing him, and then that counter left hook had him in serious trouble. He went down and then got put down again, and the referee stopped it. I'm not sure if I'm more worried about the carryover from that stoppage loss, though, than the inactivity. I just don't like the inactivity. How hard has he been training? Is this just an opportunity for him to get a paycheck more than he believes he's got a serious chance of winning? Staying at 140, the boxer responsible for all the damage limitation happening there at Boxer XX with Adam Azim and Ben Shalom, Dalton Smith, he was scheduled to fight a European opponent named Fernandez on the 28th of October at the Utilita Arena in Sheffield. Dalton was injured, never found out what the injury was. Johnny Fisher was on the undercard against Rudenko. Rudenko, he's a tough guy, he's a good opponent for Johnny. He was supposed to headline now, but they were going to bring it to the Copper Box Arena, where Johnny Fisher headlined last time out against Alan Babbage. It was a very successful venture in the ring and outside. They sold a lot of tickets. Now, apparently Johnny Fisher has got injured. And now the event is going back to Sheffield, where RHIANON DIXON will defend a WBO lightweight title against Terry Harper. Not a good period for Matchroom on the domestic front, with two of their more popular prospects being sidelined, but the show must go on. However, even though it's back in Sheffield, it won't be in the Utilita. It will be in the Cannon Medical Arena, I assume a smaller venue.
There's Rob. Why do we need promoters or world title belt organisation? Let Turkey run boxing and deal with the TV networks, as I don't see the need for promoters or belts, and them simply getting a cut of the profits. You've got a wry smile on your face, Mr. Jordan.
That's a question for young Eddie over there. I mean, I smile wryly when he talks about doing it for the good of boxing, because if it was done for the good of boxing, they'd have done it before. It's an interesting one because when you replace the establishment, you become the establishment. And Turki ALALSHIKH speaks in a way I think is quite interesting and quite refreshing. I think it should be questioned. I think it shouldn't be just be taken at face value, the motivations behind it and what's going to happen with it. And that's what I like to do at times. We're in a halcyon period. These guys are getting fights made for them. They haven't got to do much. Just turn up and people can point at how much money they want to give them. Right? That's, to me, not much of a skill set. And it does make me wonder whether the end game for these guys with the Saudis is to look and say, well, what do we need these guys for? They're glorified agents. What do we need them for? We can own the fighters. We can talk direct to the fighters. We can have the relationship. We're the money. If I was the money in the room, unless there was a bloody good reason, why would I want to deal with Hearn and Warren? If I've got the ability to turn out their lights economically, what do I need them for?
Glorified agents. Now, I don't want to big up the promoters too much, you know. It's all about the boxers. They're taking the real risks. But, you know, Barry Hearn, he's a Hall of Fame promoter. His son Eddie has been very successful in taking over Matchroom Boxing and Matchroom the brand that handles other sports. Frank Warren is Hall of Fame. Do we not give them credit for developing talent for the best part of, must be 40 years when Frank got in the game? From his first champion, Keith Wallace, to Terry Marsh. Terry Marsh, his first world champion. He developed Terry Marsh from domestic level, British, European, and all the way to world title level. Nassim Hamed, Johnny Nelson, he worked with Frank Warren. I don't have to do the whole roll call of fighters. It would be unfair to say that they're not paying for Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn's talent. It would be unfair to say that. It would. But that's what Simon is implying. They're glorified agents. Let's take Matchroom. They've got a gym that's produced a couple of world champions, Darren Barker, Joe Cordina, the Matchroom gym. Anthony Joshua used to train there. Craig Richards, world title contender, he used to train there. Felix Cash, British champion, he used to train there. Tony Sims, who runs the gym, he used to spar with Nigel Benn. Now he trains Nigel's son, Connor. Matchroom have been very good at networking with the media. If you want an example of a promotional outlet taking advantage of the social media paradigm we're in, Matchroom would be a great example. The relationships he's built up with Coogan, their repertoire together, has done wonders to promote British boxing, Matchroom boxers, and their fights. 80,000 at Wembley with Carl Froch, about to break the record with Anthony Joshua. We just spoke about Johnny Fisher. Johnny Fisher is looking at selling out the Copper Box. There's a card on tonight, top tier promotions. Prospects like George Liddard and Jimmy Sains, they've been on there, while Matchroom have been busy with Riyadh season. Tony Sims keeps them busy. Lots of networking. You know, Simon should give the viewers a more informed take on what happens in British boxing. Like, Eddie and Frank have to have their ear to the ground with the smaller hall promoters. It's Eddie, Frank, Ben Shalom. They're signing the small hall fighters. They're making the connection between small hall and their larger shows. Turkey comes in for the finished product. The Anthony Joshuas, the Tyson Furies, etc. The Terence Crawfords from America. He doesn't want to do all that grassroots developing fighters. So saying that Eddie and Frank are not necessary, it's not a very clever argument.
Because one of the things I said to Hearn was, these guys, because he quite openly suggests that all the fights that they haven't been able to make are now being made. And they're being made solely really by the wishes of this particular individual, Turki ALALSHIKH, and the money that's behind him for the agenda that the Saudis have. Do you look at it and say, well, if they can make fights, in spite of promoters, well, then they can do pretty much everything else in spite of promoters.
The Riyadh season fights and events are not happening in spite of the promoters. Turkey's got them to work together. But suggesting because we're getting more fights that the fans are asking for means we can do away with the promoters is very short-sighted. And I don't want to say dangerous, that'd be going a little over the top. But it's not good for boxing to marginalise anybody's role, like what Simon is doing. Simon was complaining about lack of atmosphere in Riyadh season. It should be more like England, is what he's saying. Well, who are the main promoters in England responsible for that atmosphere that you so want from Riyadh season? It's Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren and their shows. But there you are saying we don't need them. He doesn't think out what he's saying. The shock jock tactics, okay, there's a lot of numbskulls who don't listen to be informed. Anthony Joshua's going to get PTSD. They tune in for that. That excites them, rather than real information.